welcome everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to our Words of Wisdom series, sponsored by the Women in Science, Design, Engineering, and Mechatronics and Manufacturing. I'm so sorry, of Elements Community College. My name is Bettina Akupe. I am the apprenticeship implementer at ACC, and I am very honored to welcome Erin Page today. And Erin is the program launch manager at GKN Driveline in Mebane. And Erin, I'll let you talk more about this because you are the expert here, not me. So just a little bit of housekeeping. This session is being recorded so we can share it with other ACC people afterwards. So if you're uncomfortable with that, please turn off your video. If you have any questions, we'll try to make this as interactive as possible. Just unmute yourself, ask the question, or you can actually use the chat as well. So if you would rather just type your question, that's totally fine. All right, so Erin, why don't you tell us a little bit about you? So who are you, what do you do? And then I'll start with a couple of questions, but I'll let you have the floor first.
Okay. Well, I'm Erin Page, and I work at GKN Driveline, just off the Trollingwood exit. I started here as a supervisor, and I have a degree in industrial engineering. So I took a job with GKN here in Alamance County because I know that automotive is loaded with engineers. When I graduated with an engineering degree, it was in 2009 when we had our recession. So I was just looking for an industry to get into where I could practice my skills that I had learned. So I eventually got on board with GKN as a supervisor and waited for an opening. So then I moved into engineering, and then was promoted to a launch manager. So I deal with all new product launches in the plant.
Okay, so tell us a little more about that. What is a program launch?
Right now we are starting the launch of the CRV 2022.
Wow.
So, yeah. Whenever an automaker wants to have a new revision or the new model year, that production starts happening the year before it's released. So the 2022 CRV will be manufactured. It'll start manufacturing in 2021. And that means we need to have all the testing done, and we need to have all the validation, all the process validation. There's a lot of government documents that we have to fill out for safety. And so all that has to get done about a year before we even start producing the product. So getting all of that lined up takes a person to be able to talk to everybody involved, make sure that engineers tend to work in silos. You know, they don't talk to each other. They could be sitting right next to each other and they don't speak about what they're working on. So I make sure that the quality engineer and the manufacturing engineer and the industrial engineer are all talking together about the new program to make sure that we're all on track and that we meet our milestones. So that's kind of what I do.
That sounds very interesting. It sounds like a lot of coordinating different people and project management. So how much engineering do you actually do?
I do none now.
Okay.
Yeah.
You just have that background knowledge from whenever you worked as an engineer and your studies, of course.
Yeah. So when I was a supervisor, I got a lot of exposure to the plant. I learned about who all the managers were and who all the other supervisors, all the operators. So I know who to talk to get something done. Oftentimes engineers don't know who to talk to get things done. So it's nice that I have the relationship I do with the shop floor. And I also have a lot of product knowledge when I was an engineer working with the processes, working with the other engineers. So I've built a good rapport with the engineering side of the business. So it was kind of a natural fit for product launch when we have to work together with engineers and manufacturing, because we're not like a specialty shop. We don't do like 10 pieces and then change over to the next thing. We do 1,000-piece run or a 5,000-piece run. So when we have to make test parts, it's very challenging to get into a cell, to get that time, because everybody's got metrics and we all have to do more with less. And so there's not a lot of resources to get in and get out of the cell. So making sure that we have the right people going in at the right time, making sure that all of the material is here is something else that I work on too. So yeah, just kind of coordinating all those activities.
That sounds very interesting, and like it sounds like a lot of work too, and relationship work, it sounds like. So you said that you wanted to go into the automotive industry because you saw a lot of engineering in that industry. So why exactly automotive and not something else in manufacturing with a lot of engineering?
From what I have observed is that automotive changes. It's constantly changing. So you constantly need engineers involved with the quality process, with the industrialization of a new product, with just the training involved and getting people on board and everything that is involved, new tooling, new gauging, setting all that up. Where with other industries, I have worked in another plant in Greensboro. We made soap, and that didn't change. It was, we made a pot and pan detergent, we made a sanitizer, we made a bleach product, and it was just, maintain status quo, make improvements if you can, but if there were quality issues or safety issues, there was one or two engineers, but it wasn't a big team of quality engineers and a big team of mechanical engineers that were constantly engaged with a constantly changing product. So I wanted to be in an industry where there was a lot of change, a lot of movement. So because I'm more engaged that way. I have a lot more fun when things are changing and there's something to do.
That makes a lot of sense to me. Awesome. So do you think well, let me step back. You are probably one of the very few women in your plant. Do you think there are any misperceptions about women in manufacturing? Have you experienced any challenges because of being a woman?
I think some of the misconceptions are that women can't do that type of work, whether it's because things are too heavy or too dirty, or it's just not a good environment for women. And that is all false. With OSHA standards that have been in place for many, many years, a safe work environment with, proper ergonomics are rampant. I mean, it's a requirement. So you can't work in a plant with where you're going to be lifting heavy things over and over and over. That's going to break a person. So there's lift assist. So our plant in particular has lift assist and small like pulleys to help with heavier things. I know when I first started, I noticed that some of our cells that we had, there was a particular tool that would go inside of a machine, and the tool can weigh up to like 40 pounds, but it's pretty small. So it's very, very hard to maneuver, and it felt very dangerous. And there were a couple of our machines that tool went into that didn't have a pulley to get the tool safely in and out. So there were females that thought they could do that job as far as setting up the machine with that tool, but they didn't feel safe. So I went ahead and had all of the machines get that pulley system installed so that it was friendly to everybody, because I mean, it's not okay to put anybody in a situation where they feel like they could be unsafe or be hurt.
Right.
You know, men get strains and pull their backs all the time. It's not okay
Right.
for anybody
Right.
to go home with an injury. So I think that having women in the workplace raises the bar, right? Like there's things that's not right. You know, we've been, you know, a lot of times like, oh, it's been like that for years. Like, well, you know, when you have a fresh set of eyes that go in there and say, no, it shouldn't be like that. I think it raises the bar, and there's a new standard now, and we're safer and we're more efficient, and people don't go home injured, and that's important. It's important to our community. It's important to our families, and
Right.
I think it's been great, at least when I see women come into the workplace, because they have a fresh perspective, and they say, well, you shouldn't have a huge leak in the floor because that's not safe. And so
Right.
we've made a lot of improvements since I've been here, when I have more women on the team. So I don't know if I answered the question or if I went on a rant somewhere else.
No, you definitely did. I'm just going to go back to the second question, though. So have you personally encountered any challenges because of being a woman?
Not in particular. There's been instances where I've seen, and this might just be a cultural thing, for a woman to get promoted, there has to be a show of competence in that role, where I've seen men get promoted because into a role because they show promise. So they haven't actually demonstrated. You know, there have been instances where I've seen two operators, one that knew how to do the role, and that was a female, and there was a male that came in and showed promise, and he ended up getting the promotion instead of the female because he'd catch on real fast. And I said, well, she's been training. I've had her trained because she showed interest. I had her trained for the promoted role. What happened? Oh, well, this guy showed promise. I'm like, oh, I don't care. He's clearly not as qualified as she is. So what's going on? So I think it's and I've seen it in more instances than one. But it's just part of the culture. And I think what needs to happen is for more women to find good mentors. I know that was one of the questions, is how do you do that? Just finding a person that's in a role that you see yourself within 5 to 10 years, and just seeking them out. If there's somebody that you can look up to and somebody you can trust, just telling them what your goals are. You know, stopping them real quick, telling them what you admire about them. Here are my career goals. And I was just wondering if every once in a while we could get together and just chat about how it's going. And if you could give me any pointers or anything I could do to better my position to get into those roles, you know, that'd be great. Something like that. Because it's important to be heard and to be seen.
Right.
And you have to step out to do that. You know, like, you might not be in the hunting club. You might not, you know, do racing on the weekends. I'm just thinking about some of the things that my coworkers have in common, and I don't.
Right.
You know, so it's important to be seen in a professional way. You know, if that's the only way that you're not their buddies, it's fine. But you're here to get a job done and to be successful and help make the company successful. So it's important. It's important to be seen and to be heard, and to find that mentor is I think very important. It's an important step in your career path.
I absolutely agree. So how do we find that mentor? Did you have a mentor, and how did you
there was a manager, well, there's a couple managers that I've had along the way that I look to as mentors. You know, so first you identify somebody that you think you can trust, right? And that's kind of hard, that can be up in the air, but just, when I got into more of this professional role, I looked around and I said, oh, here's a person that I think I can talk to as a person. So I, just swung by his office early one morning when he was there, and I just said, hey, I really admire the way that you do your job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like to hear that.
And so that kind of softens the mood, right? Like nothing scary is about to happen. I was just telling you, I really like the way you do your job. And I just, I'd like to be in a role like this someday. And maybe we could talk more about my career at some point. Oh yeah. And that's it. So that was the first conversation. And then, I don't know, maybe it was like 6 months or something after that. We ended up being in an interview. We were interviewing an employee that we were hiring onto my team. And so after the interview, well, where do you see yourself? He asked me where I saw myself in 5 to 10 years. And he says, what does Erin Page want to do when she grows up? That was the question. And then, so we just talked a little bit about that. And he said, well, let me see, when things open up, I'll make sure to, put your name out there. Because, you can apply for all the jobs in the world, but if you don't get along with the team that you're going to be like working with, if they don't know you and how you operate, then your chances might be a little bit lower.
Yeah, that's very true. And you have to have that supporter that actually advocates for you whenever you need it. Like if there's a job opening, if a manager comes in and says, hey, I have Erin right here and she's really good at what she's doing, that makes it much easier for you.
Yeah.
Okay, I do have a couple of more questions, but I would like to open the floor and see if anybody else has a question for Erin. Okay.
I have a question, Bettina.
Yes, go ahead, Carolyn.
Hi, Erin. I believe we've met. I don't have my video on, so you can't see. Let me see.
Carolyn, we have.
Okay, so I'm sorry. I'm struggling to quickly get my video on. But anyway, you know who I am. So I just wanted to, I believe if I'm remembering correctly that you have a degree from NC State. Is that correct?
I have a degree from University of Minnesota in Duluth.
Oh, that's...
We're from the same
that's place. Right. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Minnesota moment. So what advantages do you see to pursuing a degree at a community college versus a 4-year degree?
I believe that community colleges are more geared towards what that industry is looking for in that area. When I graduated from the University of Minnesota, they were looking, that area was looking for more like mechanical skills, more like managerial skills. And so they really pushed that more heavily, like economic engineering and things like that, where down here, I've noticed that there's a bigger push for lean manufacturing and some Six Sigma, the green belt. I think all those get pushed a lot more in this area than they did where I was from. So it just, I think going to a 4-year, like doing a program at a local like ACC, you get skills that the industry that you live in is looking for, because I imagine that local businesses work with the local colleges to make sure that people that are graduating have the skills to fill that that need.
Aaron, I have a question for you.
Yes.
I'm the department head for information technology here
Okay.
at just to introduce myself, but thanks again for doing this. And several of us from our department have attended. We just want to, coming from IT, it's very similar, heavily male dominated in a lot of cases, but that's increasing. But my question, I actually follow up from your last point about the mentoring. Have you, whether intentionally or just inadvertently, turn around? Have you seen opportunities where you can in turn be that mentor or need it to be for any other females or anybody else that may be in an underrepresented group in your industry?
Yes. So I think that one of the biggest things that I'm going to go with like a very broad statement and just say community in general is lacking is communication. So a lot of people, just to give a little bit more background about myself, I consider, so one of the people I looked up to very much is my mother, and I consider her to be a master communication specialist, if you will. She can just look at someone's face and know what kind of day they're having, what the right thing to say is to turn it around. She is amazing at that. And so she's great at verbal, nonverbal, body language, emails, text messages. I mean, she is just a master communicator. And so I've tried to make the same observations about people. How's it going? What are your goals? I try to always ask, like, what do you want to do? What do you want to be when you grow up? And so the guy that I currently hired to be my my right hand, if you will, he started as a forklift driver, and now he's the material coordinator for all new launch. And he moved up into like a lead role. And when he was in the lead role for shipping, I said, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? Because, well, I don't want to be doing this. Because he just seemed kind of like he wasn't having a great day. And I was like, well, I really like you on my team, so I'd appreciate it if you, if the position ever comes open, because I did have somebody working with me, but he had been talking about leaving. And so he had, expressed that he was not having a great time, and he is African American, but that's neither here nor there. But still, there's, I don't know. I'm really happy that he's part of my team now. There's been other women too that I've worked with. I recommended a Hispanic woman that I work with to be part of the leadership elements of 2021.
Awesome.
I don't know if you guys are familiar. Oh, you guys are all familiar with the Leadership Elements program. I just graduated last month. So I was class of 2020. And so I also recommended that another female that I work with be part of the 2021 class, just to kind of keep that, keep it going with females in leadership, and to try to raise that voice and raise that presence. And a lot of women were promoted when I was a supervisor into lead roles, into senior technician roles, because I made sure that they were seen and I made sure that they were heard. Because they always expressed like that you got to listen to everybody, right? So the opportunities are equal for everyone. And so if a woman expressed that she wants to learn how to be a senior technician, do the changeovers, well, then I'll make sure that you get that opportunity the same as everyone else. And if there's something in the way, like a physical barrier, I'm gonna make sure that it gets taken down. So like I said, I had all those pulleys put in to all the cells to make sure that it was safe and that females felt that they were being seen and heard, that these aren't safe conditions for anyone to work in, including them. So I always try to be mindful. Sorry, go ahead. I always try to be mindful.
No, go ahead.
to make sure that we have a diverse group as much as I can, because we all come from different backgrounds, and our genders, the color of our skins, they all impact how we grew up, and we all solve problems a little bit differently because of our backgrounds and how we grew up. So I just want to make sure that we have a diverse team to be as successful as we can.
I admire that. That's awesome. Really, really cool. So Erin, we at the community college, we work with a lot of individuals that are looking to go into a certain career or into a new career. Are there any critical skills that you think somebody must have when going into the career you chose?
When I think about critical skills, again, something that I really lean on is communication.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a skill that we are losing with technology. It's much easier to send someone a message than to call them and to hear a voice, or to have even a face-to-face. Having hard conversations is very challenging. To make yourself vulnerable is something that is hard to do. It's always been hard to do, right? Like, it's like what love movies are always so popular forever and ever, because you're vulnerable. And so
right.
It's challenging. And I think that I feel like that communication is a huge one in any industry you go in. And also being organized. So trying to think about how you're going to do your work, having a standardized way to do work. So on Mondays, I'm going to address, this one thing. And on Tuesdays, I'm going to address this thing. So I've got, just my standardized work is I have all of my meetings with all of the engineers on Mondays. That way, through the rest of the week, I can work on all the follow-up items that they need, all the barriers that are in their way. I have to try to get them taken down so that we can get things moving. I also work on Fridays are my tooling recovering day. So if we have to order special tooling, we have to document it, we have to take pictures and have it labeled appropriately, because it's like some customers own their tooling, so we have to make sure that it's labeled appropriately. So I make sure that all that gets done on Fridays. And Wednesdays I do inventory management. So I just make sure that I try to figure out how I'm going to stay organized. So organization is big. Let me check any other skills. Also, material classes, just mechanics of materials, and how materials behave, I think played a bigger role in my career than I imagined, right? So I'm in lab and we're, making molds and doing experiments on, what happens if you take this little metal bar and you freeze it and then you break it, or if it's red hot and then you break it, how does the material behave? Just all that experience, that hands-on with materials has given me a little bit more understanding of why we process the way we do and how we process. And so when it comes to all the different departments, because we have one heat treat department and we have a carburizing department and we have lathes, and we have all these different things and all these different processes going on, and we have to handle them very carefully, because if you if you get product too hot, then it changes the makeup of the. I just think that mechanics of materials and how materials behave was also really helpful, just in manufacturing in general. Yeah. I guess one other thing that, like, I thought of a question that I would like to ask people that are in their, so I'm 35, and something I'd like to ask people that are in their 40s or 50s is that I wish somebody would have, is if you could give two sentences of advice to yourself when you were in your 30s, what would it be? Because I wish that when I was in my 20s, somebody would have told me to really develop your sense of self. So what do you like to do? What do you lean on to remind yourself of who you are and to really like find that? Because no matter what job you go into or what role, and maybe especially as a woman, you can really get steamrolled and you can really start to feel like a doormat. And it might be just every industry, and it might be everybody. And I don't think it's just women. I think it's everybody can feel that way. But really, when you have those days where you feel like the doormat, like to go home and to remind yourself of who you are. Like, you know, I enjoy swimming. I was on the swim team, and I've got these beautiful children, and I started a chicken farm.
Yay! That's awesome.
I don't know what. Really remind yourself of who you are, because it helps you, you know, stay positive, find your hope, be resilient, and help you into the next day. So I guess I have a question for those on the panel. You know, you're seeing yourself now, like 10 years ago, what's something that you would have been able to tell yourself in 2 sentences, you know?
That's a great question. So the floor is open.
I think this is Carol, and again, I think I had to answer this question for the Women's Resource Center recently. Some of it is pace yourself. That's hard. I still have trouble doing that. I like throwing myself into things wholeheartedly. But the road is long, and you got to take breaks, and you know, if you can't support others if you're, you know, burnt out yourself. So that's something that I try to do, and not always successfully. I tend to be very passionate about things I get involved in, but that's something I'm feeling as I move into decades beyond the 30s. Let's put it that way. So you have a lot more energy in your 30s, and please enjoy that, and also enjoy your eyesight.
Okay.
Your ability to see things close and far away with one pair of glasses.
Caroline, that's been my goal since the twins have been born, is that, like, you want the road to be long. So you need to pace yourself so you're there for the end.
Yes.
And that's what, since, you know, the twins, I've tried to jump straight back into teaching and straight into, like, you need the road to be long. Sometimes things fall. And I know Nora Roberts is hit or miss, but, like, you have lots of balls. Some of the balls are glass, some of the balls are rubber. And you've got to make sure you catch the glass ones. And some days that's work, and your kids might have to bounce a little. And some days that's kids, and then work has to bounce a little. So it's like figuring out the long-term goals and which balls are glass on a given day, which balls are rubber. That's been like my career goal since the twins have been born.
How old are your twins?
They're 4 now. They just turned 4 last month.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they turned 4 a month ago tomorrow.
Oh, so fun.
It's fun. It's crazy.
Man, you like made it through it though. I tell you what, I have a 4-year-old, and my baby's about to be 2 in a couple weeks, and like the 4-year-old is so much easier than the 2, and I can't imagine having 2 of them.
It's crazy.
Oh my God.
There are some days are hard.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Do you think this is, so I heard a lot about pace and, you know, handle, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bettina. I was talking and I didn't realize that I was still on mute. This is Audrey Devine. Hi, Erin. I had to add to that, to Erin's question if I could.
Sure.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm an older student in the CAD department at ACC. I'm in my late 50s, and I just wanted, after having worked many years in an extremely demanding professional career, I think the advice I would say is, it's so important not to lose yourself. Like, I mean, I know things have changed now in the work, world, and there's a new influence from this younger generation. But coming from an older generation and working in an industry that was dominated by an older generation, well, mid to older, I would just say not losing yourself. It's so easy to make your whole life about your job, to revolve everything about your job. What I learned is that you need to not take yourself too seriously, and especially when it comes to critics, getting criticism and flattery as well. That's equally important. Like, people give, they flatter you, they give you compliments, they give you criticism, but hold on to who you are, who you are. And you were alluding to that earlier, Erin. Just, it's so important to, stay connected with your family. Don't neglect the human element in yourself, in the midst of your career, nor in other people. When you have your coworkers and the folks that are a part of your work life, don't neglect that human element in them. Remember that they're people, and I for so many years I was treated like it was a very, very big medical organization that I worked for, and I was in construction management for many years, and people were only as good as the work that they put out in the eyes of others. And it just set such a terrible work environment. It created a lot of toxicity and a lot of, competitiveness that was on an unhealthy level. So I just, just being a human being, remembering these are our fellow human beings, being kind, considering the person, their circumstance, and again, don't be bought out by flattery and don't be put down by criticism. Just remember who you are. Anyways, that's it. There's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so inspired by you all right now. This is really awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I was wondering, in the middle of listening to you, if that's something, if that question, the answer to that would be different if you had asked a man. I don't know. I feel like we as women, we're a lot about relationships, about, being there for our family, caring for others, helping others. I don't know if that's something specific to being a woman. So if we have any men in our round this afternoon and that would like to share their advice to the 10-year younger self, I would love to hear that too. Well, if not, I guess that's okay too. Renard, oh, I saw you unmute yourself.
I'm sorry, I was saying if any of the other.
That's okay, no worries.
So I think it would be a lot of the same.
Okay.
Personally, Erin, I think it was your point about really being true to who you are, your goals, your passion, and really going after that. And I'll say for me, by me knowing really what I was passionate about and interested in, and even being willing to let go of what a traditional path may have been, so I could really focus on what my interests were. It helped me to overcome any barriers or challenges because I knew what I wanted, and I would get the help. I would network. I would find ways to work around or work through a situation because I know it was what I wanted, what I was going for, what I was suited for, and I knew why I wanted to do it. So that's something that I would make sure to reiterate, for someone at the same stage, 10 or so years ago, even for myself. So it is very similar. Definitely learning about the value of relationship and it being a two-way street, not just for what I can get from someone else or how they can help me, but at the same time, genuinely doing the same in return for others. I mean, it may not even be the same person or people, but when the time comes, when it's your turn, I believe they call it paying it forward, but just always looking as giving that back to somebody else when needed. But yes, I mean, if someone else does help you, absolutely, do what you can to help them out as well. It's just that relationship building because there's a lot of benefits and positive outcomes for that. And if we're looking at it through a diversity lens or a lens of underrepresented groups, I don't want to go into really listing everything out, but there's so many other positive outcomes when you need that support, or you need somebody to vouch for you, or somebody to maybe show a little favor for you in a situation and understand you. And a lot of times really knowing your personal character versus a stereotype or an assumption says a lot. So those are the, I'll keep it at that. I can get a little winded as well. So that I'll say, like the other person said, that's my 2 cents there.
Thank you for sharing that. So, Erin, if we have a young woman at the college that would like to work for you, what does she have to have? So we talked about the critical skills before, but are there any specific classes that you think would be helpful, or maybe a specific program? So where do we get started?
To work in the plant, I would recommend a class that gets some hands-on experience with heavy machinery. Doesn't really matter what it is. It'd be better if it was, a lathe, or to get that hands-on experience, to see that it's not that intimidating. Yeah, because where I went to college, we had old lathes that weren't like you had to do everything by hand in them. So it was a little bit intimidating just to step on the floor here as a supervisor and see how far things have come, and to not have as much knowledge as I wish I did. Recommend some type of class to get more hands-on with the heavy machinery, so it's not so intimidating.
Okay, I have one last fun question for you, and the question is, where do we find you at 10 a.m. on a Saturday morning?
Saturday mornings, so I have two little girls and my husband, and so I've got a 4-year-old and basically a 2-year-old. And Saturday morning, we either go to a park, or we go in the backyard and play with our chickens, or we play board games. So I have a little picture of my daughter with her chickens. Can show real quick. I'm not sharing it. Am I there?
Yes, you are. It's coming.
Yeah. So that's that's my daughter at the beginning of the summer with our rooster. He is like doubled in size now, so I need an updated picture, but yeah, I love them. I love them both. Whoever knew you'd love a chicken?
That is so cute. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
All right, yes, that was my last question. So Haley, if you do have a question, go for it. The floor is open now.
Okay, I'm not sure if I'm phrasing it the right way, but do you find it better to be noticed by like being nice, picking up duties and such? Or do you find it better or more successful to be noticed in a way that's more obvious, like participating in the conversations and such? Because like nice, it's nice, but at the same way you can just be passed over. Obvious, it's like not as nice, but at the same time they have to acknowledge you.
Awesome question.
That's a great question. So always be nice. You never want to not be nice, because you'll get farther being, be good at what you do. So try to focus on the work at hand, be good at what you do, and speak up when, or just, I'm just trying to think. Yeah, you're going to want to be part of a conversation. You're going to want to build relationships. That's part of trust. So yeah, I do, and building relationships with others. Is my internet working okay?
You keep breaking up.
Okay. Can you guys hear me okay? I feel like it's kind of late in the game. Oh,
yeah, you
that's what I
keep
was
breaking
asking.
up. Yeah. It's okay for a little bit and then you break up, but you always come back. So that's why I haven't said anything yet. Okay, any other questions? All right. Well, if we don't have any other questions, I don't want to keep you for too long, Erin. So thank you very, very much for talking to us today, for sharing your story, your advice. I think it was super inspirational. So thanks for doing that. And if anybody else has another questions, we have a couple of minutes left, but otherwise, I would like to say goodbye and thank you so much for joining us today and spending your lunchtime with us. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, thank you, Erin. That was super helpful. I loved all your thoughts, your perceptions, the challenges, all the things you shared. Really, really great. Thank you so much. And thank you, Bettina, for putting this on. What a wonderful opportunity for us. Thank you.
Anytime. Thank you, Audrey.
Well, Bettina, you have my contact information. So if anybody has any other questions or any concerns, or if you just want to reach out to say hi, chickens, feel free. I'm always there. I'm an open book. So feel free to reach out at any point.
Absolutely. Thank you so, so much.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.